Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013. And if we can have Mr. Drobish lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call, please. Here.
Here. Chair Briggs.
Here. Thank you. I'd now like to move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by general consent unless any commissioner requests a roll call vote or unless any member of the commission or staff or public wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a commission member requests otherwise. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent calendar? And do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, the consent calendar is adopted. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to vote. Aye.
Aye.
The consent calendar is adopted. No items were removed from the consent calendar, so we'll now move on to item 5, which is items of interest to the public. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The Planning Commission shall not take any action on these items. This is a portion of the meeting that's reserved for people wishing to address the Commission on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. State law prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the Planning Commission under specified circumstances. The chair reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. The chair will recognize the speaker and ask that they state their name for the record. Personal attacks on individuals or comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy will not be tolerated. Do I have any items of interest from the public? Seeing none, we will close that and move forward to item number 6, communications. Do we have any communications?
Yes, there is one communication, and it was provided by Member Drobish, and that was passed out prior to the meeting this evening.
Thank you. All right. We will be moving forward to public hearings. Because we have recently changed our time and to allow for some more folks to hopefully trickle in, the chair will move that we recess.
If I can interrupt.
Yes.
The applicant's agent is in the audience this evening, so we
Good.
are prepared to
We
hear
are prepared to move forward.
7.1, yes.
Okay, great. Then I'll call the first item. That is item 7.13136 Sacramento Street, Robinson Residence Site Plan Review, SPR 2013-01. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. This project, as you mentioned, is located at 3136 Sacramento Street. The size of the property is approximately 8,000 square feet, a pretty small lot here in town. And a lot of things are on that lot. There are 3 distinct detached structures on this property, one containing the subject site, which is 3136, which is a single-family residential property or building structure, which is the nature of tonight's discussion involving window change-out and siding. There are 2 additional structures on the property. One is a detached garage building located to the rear of the site. That building has a living unit above. There's also a secondary dwelling located to the southeast of the site with the address of 3142. That is not of the subject matter. Neither that or the detached garage with living unit above is part of the discussion this evening, strictly the structure at 3136. The request tonight, again, as I mentioned, is to replace 11 existing wood and vinyl windows and replace them with a vinyl window product. The same style, same lights, light treatments, mullions, what have you. They would also be replacing the existing trim as well as the woodlap siding and replace it with fiber cement siding. And the manufacturer's brochures were provided for you. Those are part of tonight's packet. The project site is also located within a historic district. And when a project that involves exterior alterations to an existing building within a historic district, it must go through what's called site plan review. The site plan review process involves first the item goes before the Historical Advisory Committee, and that occurred on March 21st. The Historical Advisory Committee heard the item. They heard from the project applicant, their agent, as well as a member of the public. They considered the request and rendered a recommendation that's before you this evening, which is to approve the project as submitted. They also recommended that the applicant come forward with a color choice or choices that they wish to paint the exterior of the siding, because at the time of the Historical Advisory Committee, that color palette had not been determined. And thirdly, they suggested, recommended that the applicant, property owner, have the discretion to reinstall the awning and the shutters that are located on the east elevation of the building. Staff's evaluation of the project involved, as well as the Historical Advisory Committee, involved reviewing the item according to two sets of criteria. The criteria that's within Section 1049 of City Code, which is the site plan review criteria, as well as Section 10410, which is the historical buildings in the city section. And the criteria involved with that section is the Secretary of Interior Standards for the rehabilitation of historic buildings. Staff's review of those criteria determined that the site has been modified over the years, and I do want to also stress that the permit history for this site is very vague. The permits that I mentioned in the staff report are the only ones of record. So therefore, it is not clear from that record when the vinyl windows, which were probably not original to a 1951 structure, were installed. It also appears from staff's perspective that the turret, that if you're facing the building on the right side of the building, a turret was installed, and it is not known as to what date or year that occurred. But looking at architectural styles for post-World War II architecture, a turret is typically not found as a component of that type of architectural style. If I were to guess as a professional planner, I would think that there's one permit that occurred, and I'm not looking at the section of the staff report, but there was some fire damage. Perhaps that's when that particular characterization of the building was installed. In terms of the review and the consistency with the Secretary of Interior Standards, staff finds that the proposed changes to the architecturally significant portions of the building really remain unchanged. The window openings as they exist will remain. There are no changes to the stairwell or the covered entry or the cross gable design which this structure has as its character. The changes that are proposed tonight are for a window change out, which once again I did mention that some of the windows that are part of the 11 have been replaced in the past to a vinyl product. Tonight the request again is for all vinyl exterior clad. The siding, as we learned from at the Historical Advisory Committee meeting from the applicant's agent, Mr. Borba, who's here this evening, the request and the information provided by him, there was damage to the siding, and that precipitated the need to replace not only the portions that need repair, but it was decided upon by the property owner just to replace all of it instead of piecemeal it out or just the components that needed repair. Once again, the site is a really multiple uses going on the property in terms of residential structures. The number of units on the site are legal. They are technically non-conforming to our code. They can exist in perpetuity if they remain. Modifications in terms of expansion of the size of the building, that could trigger additional requests in front of the Planning Commission. But in this case, it's only exterior changes to the appearance of the building and not new additions or removals of portions of the building. Therefore, the existing use, the residential use, will continue. Staff is certainly encouraging and very encourageable to have a property owner who wants to maintain their buildings, and this is an opportunity and a project that will fulfill that particular need for this in this community. We've seen over the last several years a remarkable lack of maintenance of residential structures in the city, and perhaps that has to do with the economic downturn and the people not having enough money to make those improvements. Staff certainly wants to promote that whenever possible. This particular project appears to forward that interest, and staff certainly wants to encourage that and would certainly advise the Planning Commission to encourage that as well. Staff's further review under the environmental assessment that this particular project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15301 of the California Environmental Quality Act, in that it involves only minor alterations to an existing structure that is not listed on the city, state, or federal historic resource inventory, and again, no expansion of use is proposed. That's a very key component with my staff report tonight. This site is not listed on the city's, the state's, or the federal historic resource inventory. It's a very important distinction. It is within a historic district. That is why it's before you this evening. But in terms of an historic nature of this building per se, it has not been designated as a historic facility here within the city. Staff does have some recommended findings for you to consider. They begin on page 6, continue to page 7. There are 5 conditions of approval that staff is recommending this evening. First and foremost, of course, is to obtain a building permit for the work described. Others are more standard conditions that involve related to the length of time in which a building permit must be obtained before the expiration of the entitlement expires, and typical language regarding the specificity of this particular request and the particular residence in which it applies to. That, in a nutshell, completes my staff report, Mr. Chairman. And once again, the applicant's agent is in the audience this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Painter. Do we have questions of staff? Mr. Drobish?
I have a question. In reading on the city's website, coming across the historical resources inventory, and there's the second sentence there. The following survey documents for various properties within the city, along with other locations and structures designated by City Council as historic, comprise the city's historic resource inventory. So my question is, with the historic district being designated historic by the council, and it's also included on this webpage list, there are specific addresses, but then there's also the 4 historic districts. So would the district itself be considered part of the inventory?
The district boundaries are, yes. The individual properties that were surveyed back in 83 and 84, absolutely. That's part of the inventory. There are many properties within all of the 4 residential districts that we have that have not been surveyed. There is no known knowledge whether or not they would meet a historic test. Therefore, in many jurisdictions, we have not defined it here, but in other jurisdictions, they commonly refer them as whether they're contributing to a historic district or they're non-contributing. We have not made such a distinction here within the city, but that's something perhaps our Historical Advisory Committee could be working on as a future project item at some time in the future. But to answer your question, within the district, yes, and because the property's within the district, it's subject to the review provisions within the code. But it is not a historic building in the sense that City Council has not designated as such.
So it's not, those properties not specifically mentioned are not on a list?
Correct.
Okay.
But they are within a historic district in which a review such as this would, a project such as this would go through.
Maybe the next question is for the applicant. Just looking, I counted 16 windows, 14 if the front porch 3 count as 1, so just clarification on, they mentioned replacing 11 windows. Does this application have to have elevation plans and such like other?
As some of your more seasoned members will attest, that in many times, yes, projects do have much more complete elevations, very similar to the plans that are behind you for the next item on the agenda. In this particular case, because it involves really very specific items such as windows and siding, staff felt it not necessarily important that elevations be provided, although we would require such elevations if an addition was proposed, so that the decision makers, you all, would fully understand what exists today and what is perceived as the addition. Is that okay?
Thank you.
It's also a money saving. It's to save, the mom and pop who come before you. Anyway, yeah.
Andrew, you'd mentioned there's no paint treatments, no paint samples. Did you receive
None
any
were
of that?
provided to me.
Okay.
I'm hoping to hear something
Okay,
this evening.
thanks. Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this point, I'd like to open the item to the public and request that the applicant come up and tell us a little bit about your project.
Hearing me this evening. So we met with a customer months ago now, and they showed me some damages to their 3 properties, actually, or the 3 structures on the site. And they asked me to kind of assess which ones were in most need of repair. They're actually looking at doing roofs and other items as well. And it was determined that the house we're discussing today was most in need. There's areas where you can nearly stick your hand into the interior of the structure from the exterior. And so we did discuss possibly just doing repairs on portions of it. And it was determined to be that there was so much of it that it wasn't worth doing that. So he decided that he'd like to replace all the siding. As far as the number of windows, there are a couple windows that aren't actually windows. They're just like frame kind of like windows. And so those will be sided over. Those are on the lower structure that is not a structure. It's just a basement. So we couldn't determine what they were for, and they have no glass. They're not operable or anything like that. So we were just planning on siding over them. And I believe there is like 2 windows that were already existing new vinyl that he did not want to replace. So we are replacing everything in vinyl that is requested. So as far as paint colors, unfortunately he's traveling out of the country and we haven't been able to reach him. He's an executive for some company, I'm not sure, and he's been on a vacation for the last 2 weeks. So that's why I'm here in his stay. As far as colors, we were not able to address that. I do believe he's going back with same colors, but I don't know that for sure. The other 2 questions that was left at the historic district, and we would definitely be open to suggestions. He hadn't decided at our last conversation whether or not to keep the shutters or to keep the awnings. If you need it one way or the other, I'm sure he would be open to that, no problem. But the rest of the structures do not have the shutters on them now. This building has these heart-shaped shutters, so he was kind of split on whether or not to keep them. So I'm sure he's open to whatever you guys would suggest one way or the other. These are all rentals, and he's just trying to update them and do it to the best of his ability. And so we've helped with financing and stuff to be able to make this happen. So budget is of pretty great concern, and so we're just trying to get it done for him as timely as possible. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Drogosh.
Yeah, something you just said just triggered something out of the Secretary of the Interior guidelines. They disallow covering window openings or creating new ones.
They aren't actually windows. It's just the lower part of the basement, and that's what I was saying. There is no window there. So it's on the bottom. It's on the basement itself. It's not in the resident of the house. And so we couldn't tell what they were for. So.
But they do look like fixed pane windows.
They
match
do.
The
Well, I can show you a picture of them. Yeah, one does look like, and it was painted over, and the other one is like more like a frame, like wood or something like that.
Did the Historical Advisory Committee know
We did
that
not
information?
discuss that, no.
that they could analyze to see if that met the
I think
standards?
actually, I think we did actually talk about it, but I can't remember. It was a few weeks ago.
Okay. I'd recommend that the shutters and awnings do need to be returned into previous locations due to the historical timeline that they've been there. They've become part of the fabric.
No problem. I'm sure he's totally open to that.
Did you look at any other siding that would match as close as possible like kind of materials in appearance, reveal, material? Did you do a comparison?
We discussed whether or not to go back with wood and so on. It was decided to go with, so yes, we did look at other options, but it was definitely decided to go with the fiber cement siding. And from what I have understand, it's been approved on other historic buildings with similar type of siding, going back with the certainty, because you go back, then you have the fire problem of it being flammable. And so and all the maintenance that comes with it. So the fiber cement is what we decided to go with.
Did you look around for windows that would match as close as possible to the same look? I know you're going with a different material.
We're going with vinyl.
But did you look around to find anything that has a close, you have on the front there, most of those original windows are 6/1, single hung or double hung.
And that's what we plan on going back with.
Okay, so you're,
With doing grids on the top and no grids on the bottom.
because the brochure I had on the manufacturer didn't have a specific model marked out.
No, they I don't think would do necessarily that for us. So that's just the brochure for the brand we're using. But as far as the grid layout, we are planning on the homeowner would like us to match that. So we are doing the same grid layout, but we didn't choose to go with wood or anything like that. So.
And you wouldn't happen to have a sample of one of those windows to see how close it architecturally matches?
I have samples in the truck, but it's a standard white vinyl window.
Okay.
But I do have a sample in the back of my truck, or 2 samples in the back of my truck.
That's good for now.
Would you like to see the samples? No? Yes? Okay, they're vinyl windows, and it does match other vinyl windows that are already currently on the house.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Porpa.
Okay.
Chair Briggs, I failed to mention, but we do have the vice chair of the Historical Advisory Committee here.
I saw him.
Okay.
I saw him creeping in back there.
Okay.
If he'd like to address the commission, would be happy to hear him.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Bruce Harkey, Vice Chair of the Historic Advisory Committee. We reviewed this this project, and you know, we knew this was going to be coming sooner or later with a window situation, and it is a kind of a tough one. When these guidelines were adopted in 1995, they didn't have the different codes that we have now as far as siding and windows and so forth. And so we struggle with this a bit, how we're going to make this work. And also the guidelines are open to many different interpretations. So we've talked about this in great length. And we also mentioned that it would most definitely be a good idea to possibly in the future here have a workshop with the Planning Commission and so forth, so we can get a better understanding how we're going to approach these situations as they come in. Now, with a lot of the fire codes, like Jack was saying, with the windows, with the low E, with the thermal pain and so forth, I know that say you do have this one window and it's got the little plate glass in it that's 3/16 thick, 1/4 inch thick or whatever, and okay, I'm going to take this frame, I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to refurbish this frame around it. But guess what? I've got to make it wider to support this new glass, this dual pane. So that's basically not restoring the window frame that it was. It's building a new frame. So it's kind of, you can be this way or that way, and you're not going to be right either way you go at this point, So anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Harkey. Any questions for Mr. Harkey? No. Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address this item? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the commission for discussion. As a point of order with staff, I'd like to inquire, as Commissioner Laurie has just come to the dais, whether it is appropriate for him to engage in discussion and/or vote on this item.
Well, I think really that's to the comfort level of Commissioner Lowry, and whether he's felt he's had appropriate information to be able to act on the item or not. So I would defer to the commission themselves. Legally, I don't think there's a preclusion from taking place in the discussion and any voting from this point forth, though.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Discussion from commissioners. Commissioner Drobish?
Yeah, I'm just overall concerned about setting a precedent that is going to start removing historical features and materials from our historical assets overall. I have some samples out in the truck of the siding that they have and what they like, and to me there's a very discernible difference. They have smooth 1x8 V rustic now, and you can go to Diamond Pacific or Home Depot and buy it off the shelf right now. You can also buy the fiber cement siding. But to me, there's an absolute difference in appearance. They have the smooth V rustic showing now, and it looks like they're wanting to go with the wood grain 1x8 fiber cement. So that's going to be an entirely different look for the entire structure. Replacing the windows, I have yet to find a vinyl window that would replicate the look of those single or double hung windows they have now. And the windows are the eyes of the house. It's just one more of those little subtle pieces of the puzzle, and to me the horizontal detail on siding is also important. To me, it places it into a period of time, whether it's cove, bevel. It does stamp it as a certain period of time, and I think it is a special look. So we do need to have a general discussion amongst the city of what kind of standards, because the standards we adopted are the Secretary of Interior's, and they were accepted because they were ready to go. They were already in place. And we do need to look them over and see if they fit, if we need to add or subtract from them. But what we do going forward is going to set a precedence for the next person who wants to come in and completely change the look of the house. So that's just where I'm coming from.
Any discussion from any other commissioners? Commissioner Russell?
Oh, just
Vice Chair, I should say.
Well, I guess. Keep reminding me. Okay. Just a couple comments. If we're concerned about setting precedent, we had a similar project several months ago, and we allowed vinyl windows. So this isn't the first time that it's come to us. The historic district, that particular one, I think Andrew pointed out pretty well that if that house were, standing alone someplace, it wouldn't really be considered a historic structure architecturally. At least I wouldn't think so anyway. So it was in the district, so it's there, but it's still, that doesn't make it a historic structure. I'm prepared to, having said those, just a couple of things, make a motion, and then we can discuss it more if we want to. But I would approve the project and adopt the staff report as part of the public record and make the findings of A through F and the conditions of 1 through 5. And I have two conditions that I would add. One, that the awning has been, or the awnings or whatever, they have been removed. Oh, they haven't? Okay. The awnings aren't terribly important to me, I guess, personally, but I think the shutters should stay, and I would make a condition that that at least the shutters be replaced, you know, after the construction. And as far as the color, I would allow that the applicant provide staff the color that's chosen, and if they think it's appropriate, let them deal with it and approve it. If they don't think it's appropriate, if it, you know, was tangerine or bright yellow or something, that it could come back to the commission then. But I think staff could, if it's going to stay white or near white, I wouldn't see a problem with that, you know, so.
Is that, are you actually making that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The chair would suggest that with respect to the provision on the paint, the wording of the motion say that if staff finds that the paint is substantially the same color, then staff has the authority to approve it. If not, then it would come back to the commission. So I would suggest that amendment. Do you accept the amendment?
Yes.
And does Commissioner Laurie accept the amendment?
Commissioner Lowry certainly does.
Okay. Any further discussion? I agree with Commissioner Russell. We've twice since I've been on the commission allowed for vinyl windows, and I do think it would be a good idea for us to get together with the Historical Advisory Committee and talk more about it and address some of the issues in the Secretary of Interior standards. I think that, as Mr. Harkey said, there are many interpretations of them, and so with that, I'm supportive of the motion.
Just clarification, because to me it seems pretty ambiguous of which window and which siding is actually going to be used. So do you want to designate specifically, because in the siding there's rough, there's smooth, there's matching reveal, there's different options. Basically the reveal is each horizontal layer that shows, so you can say you match that, therefore you're keeping a little bit closer to history, but the texture should go smooth to smooth as much as possible. And the windows too, you're approving something you don't even know what they look like. Just a thought.
It's my understanding that they want to replace it with fiber cement siding. Is that?
But there's different looks
There's
and
different
types.
There's different types.
Yes.
Was the applicant to provide the staff with any different type of fiber cement siding? Do we know what they're doing?
The applicant's application states that it's cedar lap, and that is one of the choices on the, not choices, but that's shown on the exhibit that we provided for you from the manufacturer. I believe it's page 3, well, it's page 3 of your handout, but page 8 of the manufacturer brochure. Cedar lap is the first column, or the first row. In terms of the reveal, I do not know what the existing reveal is. Perhaps that could be clarified by the applicant who's in the audience this evening.
Commissioner Russell, would you like to clarify your motion in any way or leave it as is?
Well, I thought that the particular board they were going to use was called out, and it was recommended, you know, by the
Cedar lap, correct.
and so I was going to go with that.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then I'd like to call the question, please.
Vice Chair Russell,
Aye.
Member Lowry,
Aye.
Member Drobish,
No.
Chair Briggs.
Yes. Okay, the decision of the commission is final and may be appealed to the city council within 10 calendar days. The next item is item 7.2, which is Thompson Toyota's 140 Forney Road Site Plan Review SPR 1999-11, 2012, Major Change Conditional Use Permit CUP 2003-03. I have a conflict on this issue as I have a client with an adjoining property, and I will be recusing myself. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Item 7.2, 140 Forney Road, and it's a site plan review concerning the siting for the refurbishment of the Toyota building there. And I believe Mike has the staff report.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, the item before you tonight is in relation to Thompson's Toyota, located at 140 Forney Road. And the application in particular is an amendment to a site plan review that was previously approved by the Planning Commission, also a conditional use permit that was before the Planning Commission for the Toyota dealership. In December of 2012, the Planning Commission considered an application for effectively a re-imaging and revamping of the Toyota dealership, and it was in order to facilitate kind of a rebranding or re-imaging of the dealership to current Toyota dealership standards. And this is the project that was before the Planning Commission in December of 2012 involved basically updating the facade, primarily the front facade of the building, but also somewhat the sides of the building, expanding the floor area of the building out into what is currently a covered roof area, open-sided covered roof area at the front of the dealership. And the plans that were presented to the Planning Commission at that time are actually posted on the wall behind you, along with the color rendering and the material samples that were presented at that meeting. The project, after careful consideration by the Commission, receiving public comment, ultimately was approved by the Planning Commission. The 10-day appeal period passed, no appeals were filed, so that approval stands. Currently, the project is in building permit plan check review for the ultimate construction of the project, and in doing the plan review for the planning division and making sure for consistency with the approval that was granted by the Planning Commission with those approved plans, in reviewing those building permit plans, staff noted that there was a discrepancy in the material on one particular component of the building, and that is referred to in the staff report as the entry portal structure, which is, and I'll excuse the laser pointer here, but I'll try to utilize this right here on the front of the building. That structure, at the time it was reviewed by the Planning Commission, was called out, and as you'll note on that particular exhibit, it was called out as having the same material or the aluminum ACM or aluminum composite paneling on the front of it as the rest of the front of the building. When reviewing the building permit plans, staff noted that it was called out as being an off-white translucent glass material on that component of the building, and that it would be was to be internally illuminated. Obviously, staff noted this as a discrepancy between what was approved by the planning and presented and approved by the Planning Commission and the building permit plans. So staff immediately contacted the applicant, brought that to light, and the applicant promptly noted that there was an error in the materials that were originally presented to the city for the December hearing. As far as, in particular, the notation on the plans that material on that component would be the ACM aluminum paneling. So the applicant, in reviewing, the options that were before them were as presented by staff, were to proceed as the project has been approved by the Planning Commission and amend the building permit plans, or seek an amendment to the approved plans, and in an attempt to change the material to what they had intended it to be. And so the applicant has opted to submit an application to amend the plans as they've been approved, to alter the material on that front portal structure to an off-white translucent glass that would have internal illumination. The staff report presents an analysis of this particular component, gives a little bit of a rehash of the prior analysis of the project, just for purposes of background, and review with regard to the city's general plan policies, site plan review requirements in the zoning ordinance, and has presented some various facts about the proposal. In this case, the applicant, the proposal is that the interior illumination of that structure would be controlled by a photocell and a timer, so that the illumination is only on during dusk to the close of business hours. That was something that staff had asked, particularly had asked them about. And in the materials too, you'll see a letter from the architect with their, expressing their apologies for the error in the plans originally, the plans that are the staff report that's been presented to you also presents some photographs of other dealerships where this type of structure exists, so that you can get a sense of what it looks like in real time with other properties. The packet also includes what's called a photovoltaic analysis of that portal structure, and it's on it's an exhibit that looks like this in your packet. It's basically looks kind of like a few squares with a whole bunch of numbers in it. What that is looking at, and just to give you some further explanation of it, is that's basically as if you were looking at an elevation of that proposed portal structure with the opening in it where the front door is just beyond. And it provides in foot candle lumens, how much illumination there is standing 10 feet away from that portal. And so that just to give you some sense of the magnitude of the brightness of the structure. The staff's analysis of the proposal is that there is that the illumination and some of the items that we note in our analysis are that the illumination of the portal may end up resulting in a overall net reduction in the total lighting brilliance, if you will, at the very front of the building, because the addition actually includes removal of some wall-mounted light fixtures at the front of the building. But furthermore, the structure in the front of the building is set back approximately 280 feet from the street, and that was certainly one of the considerations I know of the commission in reviewing the original project, is how far set back is this from the street, how prominent is it on that street, but also where does this building lie in relation to other properties, other structures, what's the architectural continuity or perhaps somewhat lack thereof in the area that it's being looked at in context. The zoning sections in the municipal code do speak to both architectural treatments and also the illumination. Staff's summary analysis of the proposal is that the lighting component that's been presented here is, fairly integrated architectural component of the overall remodeling theme of the project. Staff doesn't believe that it's out of character with that theme. That with the lighting controls that are proposed with the photo cell and the timer, that on balance that the proposal is supportable. We have noticed the hearing, and in fact this hearing was continued from a prior meeting, but in our noticing we have received no comments. I know that with the original proposal, I believe there was two public commenters on the project, one nearby property owner. We have not received any correspondence upon noticing this hearing. I know that also this evening we have the architect, Bob Davidson from R.L. Davidson here to represent the applicant, and can certainly answer any further questions that the commission might have. But with that, the other note that I will articulate, I think, to the commission is that the scope of what's before the commission tonight is really limited strictly to the proposed change in material illumination of this particular part of the project. The remaining project remains approved as is with the material approved as is, which is the aluminum composite material. And so the scope of the commission's review tonight is really fairly limited in scope. But that said, all of the conditions that were put in place in December under the approval would remain and would be carried forward if approved. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have. And I believe the applicant is interested in addressing the commission when it comes time for public comment. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions for staff?
No, I do not.
Okay. You?
I could look for some clarification on the City of Placerville sign regulations. Just reading through it. First off, the entry portal, I was looking for that definition of what to call it. I guess I can ask what it's gonna look like on the backside of the applicant later, but just on the sign regulations, just reading this, what would this structure be? I mean, could it be considered a sign? It has the corporate logo, has the dealer's name, it's internally illuminated, and number 12 of the following signs that are not allowed, internally illuminated canopies or fascias. So just clarification on that, or is this a monument sign, ground-based, internally lit, or a wall sign? Just because it's got the labeling, so it appears to me to be a sign of some sort. It's just, do you consider everything from the ground to the top the sign because it's all one look and it's all internally illuminated?
Okay. That's a good question. Yeah, and the definition of sign, just for the benefit of the commission and the public, per the zoning ordinance, a sign is defined as any device, fixture, placard, or structure that uses any color, form, graphic, illumination, symbol, or writing to advertise, announce the purpose of, or identify the purpose of a person or entity, or to communicate information of any kind to the public. So it's a fairly broad definition, I would think, certainly by any means. The prohibition that you're referring to is also noted as stating, it says prohibited signs. The following signs shall be prohibited. And it says internally illuminated canopies or fascias unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission. Is the language from the zoning ordinance on that section as well. So, but those are both sections that I think, the commission, in short, I think staff wasn't, I guess, really looking at the portal structure as a sign in its entirety. Certainly it has a sign component on it. That's how it was reviewed originally when presented to the Planning Commission, as the signs that are proposed on the building as being consistent with allowable square footage, et cetera. We hadn't looked at counting the portal structure as a whole as a sign at the time, or as part of this amendment proposal. I guess staff's review of it was looking at it as more of an architectural feature of the building, and that's certainly something that the commission could debate as to whether, what's the more appropriate designation of it. It could probably be argued, with the sign definition being as broad as it is, one could perhaps argue that that's a sign. Let's see.
Just a clarification, the original version was solid material and not backlit, correct?
That's correct.
So
yeah.
it's undergone a change.
It has, no, and that's absolutely correct. The other component that I'll note is under the site plan review for illumination in particular, is that this is the section 10-4-16E for exterior lighting regulations, and that's on page 7 of your staff report, about halfway down, where it says, following outdoor light fixtures shall be prohibited. Uplit, backlit canopies, unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission in conjunction with a site plan review. Neon tubing, lighting, et cetera. Illumination of entire building. Building illumination shall be limited to security lighting and lighting of architectural features authorized by the Planning Commission in conjunction with the required development permits. And so I think the commission really kind of has to take these various provisions in the code into account and try to balance those issues, and that's why we had presented those in the report as well. Is that, if there's going to be a structure like this with material with illumination like this in particular, it needs to be approved by the commission as part of a site plan review, and hence the presentation of it to you. I think that there is room within the provisions of 10-4-16 to give the commission that kind of leeway if, again, if it's something that the commission believes is supportable.
Would we need to make a finding that it is determined to be a sign or not a sign?
The way that we've structured the findings, is that excuse me just for a second, let me, under finding F on page 8 is where staff had integrated some language. Again, should the commission go the route of approval, is that the exterior lighting that it would be consistent with site plan review and the exterior lighting regulations, and that's where the material and the illumination is specifically called out, and some of the factors, for example, the setback from the street, et cetera, would perhaps come into account. I don't believe that the commission would need to make a finding in particular that it's not a sign, but it could be prudent for the commission to do that. Again, if that's a path the commission is going down, it could be prudent for the commission to make such a finding just for the matter of precedent, if nothing else. That might be a wise thing to do.
And also because total signage is a given formula.
Correct.
To frontage and what have you. So if just the logo and the dealership name are the sign and not the entire structure, it's going to impact how many square feet they already have and how much they can have.
Exactly, yes.
And just in the, but going back to the sign regulations, internally illuminated signs must have opaque background and designed so that only the lettering or advertising copy is visible at night. I imagine we can override that.
Yeah, I think if there's particular, again, with the provisions as they're set forth, there's in the zoning ordinance, there's flexibility provided to the commission on specific site plan reviews. What that section really is I think more probably pertaining to is when you have a sign, say a traditional kind of box sign or a monument sign that's within a frame of some kind. What we're typically looking for on those is that the letters themselves be the part to illuminate, not the background behind the letters. In this case, if it was treated as a sign, it would kind of be both illuminating, as opposed to one or the other. So it'd be a kind of an interesting hybrid, I guess. So.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing for this matter, and I believe the applicant's representative is here to talk to us. State your name, please.
I'm the architect. My name is Robert L. Davidson. I am the owner of the architectural firm that prepared the documents. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come in tonight to hopefully rectify this error that was made on our part. I don't mean to put everybody through this again. I deeply apologize for the error, but it did happen. We are human. What happened here was not meant in any sense to mislead you folks at all. It was done inadvertently. I didn't see it. Staff apparently saw it, as Michael said, when we brought our plans in for plan check. Upon, excuse me, notification, we immediately set about to take care of the issue, and thus we're here tonight. But getting to the portal design, all that said, getting to the design of the portal, the plans that we did put in for the first submittal did show on the architectural plans the portal structure, which is over your left shoulders there, on the front elevation. We obviously were not trying to hide it, and I'd be a fool to think that we could do that. The error was in the note on the colored rendering that we have behind you also, that was put there showing a arrow describing the ACM panels on the portal structure, and that wasn't so. The structure itself is a space frame structure built out of steel, wrapped in the white frosted glass, as you see there. The white glass is on the front of the portal and the back of the portal, the sides, and the portal entrance. The reason it's called a portal sign, and this is straight from the folks at Gensler, who is the architectural principal doing the design for Toyota, is they view it as a portal structure that you actually walk through, whereas most signs are just a single freestanding element. This one does have an architectural component letting you walk through it, and changes how they define it. The structure, as Mr. Webb has explained, is lit inside, and I did not happen to bring a picture of how it's constructed and how these lights are set up, but they are all canted on the glass so that the light is not shining right on the glass, thus diminishing the amount of foot candles that comes out of this thing. And that photometric elevation that we sent up with the portal shows that at 10 feet off the portal, I believe it's emitting 6 foot candles of light. The photometric plan that we have of the existing parking lot averages out somewhere between 40 and 50 foot candles of light as it is right now. So, and it actually shows what the foot candle is at the front of the showroom. It is greater than what we're going to be replacing it with, therefore diminishing the amount of light there. In fact, if you look at the pictures in the package in front of you, that shows the portal in color, you will notice some pole lights, parking lot lights, that are far brighter than the portal structure itself. And so we hope that this meets with your approval. As I said, I have to apologize. I've never had to do this in my career. I'm embarrassed, and hope that you understand what we're trying to do. The program that we work with for Toyota comes from the manufacturer, which has been set, and also this is their new image branding. Volkswagen does the same thing. General Motors, we're doing a lot of GM work. These people are unbelievably tough on us. They don't let us change anything. If we change anything, or if the dealer wants to change things, they risk losing automobiles, inventory, and it's a tough go. So we ask your approval of the staff report, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions from the commission?
So is Toyota calling this a portal sign
They call it a portal structure.
or structure?
It is actually, I should have brought a photograph of one being constructed, because it literally has 2.5-inch steel square tubes welded inside and built as a truss assembly, and it is then sheathed with the white glass you see, which is a very, very dense dual pane glass that really doesn't emit a lot of light. In fact, the harshness of the light on the parking lot mainly comes from the pole lights there that are very bright and very tough on the eyes. And then again, as staff indicated too, this portal, it is the smallest one that Toyota will allow. It will be on a timer. It'll be on a photocell. It will probably shut down at the end of business. Most dealers keep their parking lot lighting on into the wee hours of the morning. This will be shut down early. The parking lot lighting is left on, as you know, for security. This is not meant to be security. It's just meant to convey the image.
Will it be a dimmable system if it ends up being, I went online and saw some of these at night, and I'm sure they embellished some of the pictures to be more dramatic.
Right.
But some of those pictures looked like a sports arena at night. Just bam, this big white glowing Toyota entry. So will it, if there are complaints, will we be able to turn it down?
To be candid, at this point in time, we do not have it set up on a dimmer, but I think that I see no reason why that can't be accomplished.
Not all lighting can be dimmable, so that's why I asked.
Well, it may not be, but there has to be a way to change the wattage of the bulbs inside or something to make it. They really aren't that bright. When you look at them online, as you say, the photographs do magnify what it is, because that's what they're trying to show you. But if you go to a site at night, you see this thing, it does have a very soft glow and is not as offensive as a metal halide light that they use in the parking lot today.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are there any other folks here that would like to speak to this project? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I'd like to express my mortification at having forgotten the time change to 6 o'clock of the commission meeting. And I'm embarrassed, never having been late to a meeting.
Well, and from as a brief reprise from the current hearing item, I will offer, our apologies too from as a staff level. In addition to the agenda stating the new start time, I think we probably could have made a little stronger effort to make sure that, especially on this first one, that we were notifying you, everyone involved in running the meeting well in advance. So I'll offer my apologies to that as well. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I have a question for staff. And so on the one hand, we have a singular area of purview with regards to this application. I'm already on the record as from the last time this item came before us as, my disapproval, not with Thompson's, but with being forced to essentially accept whatever the corporation gives to us, and we just have to deal with it. But the only reason this is for us is because this is determined to be a major revision to the previously approved site plan review, even though architecturally and otherwise it's still very consistent, if not actually an enhancement, at least from a photometric perspective over what was previously presented.
That's correct. Yeah, staff considered this to be a substantive enough change that it warranted bringing back before the commission.
Okay. To Commissioner Drobish, Mike, I like you raised the issue of dimmability, and I think the applicant's representative then talked about wattage, and that would seem to be something maybe we would have some ability to influence, to decrease. That might just be a conditional provision that we could subsequently request a reduction in whatever wattage they initially begin with if it turns out to be objectionable, because we don't know what it's going to be. So but I thought that was a good point. Just throw that out.
Just to comment on that, I believe you made the observation that you mentioned 6-foot candles. This is the light that's going to be emitted from this portal out at a certain distance. Did I get that right or wrong? Or
Turn to your package. The photometric plan is right in front of the rendered elevation that is noted correctly this time. And as was stated, it is as if you were looking at the elevation of it, and they have taken the light readings 10 feet off the face of the portal structure. And the average of it averages out to, I believe, 6-foot candles at 10 feet out, which is not a lot.
Right, 6.46 is the average, and then the maximum is 9.8, it looks like.
Yeah, it goes down.
Right. Minimum is 2.0.
Mm-hmm. If I could add one more thing for the record too, I want you to know that we did take to heart what you asked us to do at the last hearing, and that was to see if Toyota had another aluminum panel in the gray that had a matte finish. That was more of a matte instead of the higher gloss element. We did work with them. They have come up with something that is, I think, cuts the gloss rate down from, I think, 60 to 70% down to 30%. So we will spec all that out on the plans too. We are very aware of what you're trying to accomplish up here. You have a great city.
Thank you. Just an observation about the light again. I know we're all concerned about lighting, and I think justifiably so. If this building were like 100 feet off the freeway frontage, I think that would be maybe a little different. It really does have quite a setback, and so I personally don't think that lighting is going to be a problem, and that's just my personal point of view. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I mean, I agree with that to a point, Commissioner Russell. The problem is, I think, at night, it results in such a stark contrast that it really does show up. And I remember we've had other lighting at that particular site, and even at the gas station, and it really does show up. But again, if we have the ability, I think, to request a wattage change, if it turns out that it's a problem, it may very well not be an issue whatsoever, which would be great. But this way, we would already put it in the conditions, and then we would have some ability, some enforcement ability, I guess, for lack of a better term, to require perhaps a reduction in the wattage.
Well, I'll respond to that too. Not to rub it in, you may have missed part of our earlier discussion.
I probably did. I absolutely probably did.
But this sign, portal, or whatever you want to call it, is not designed to be illuminated all night, but it will go off.
I did see that in the
and-
staff report. It's
and
on
so-
a timer.
So it's not going to be at 2 o'clock in the morning, a glowing mass up there. I'm not sure how they'll pick the time that it's going to go off, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock,
I
whatever.
think it's
but-
photometric.
But, well, you can set those on a timer, and it depends on the time of year. That sign, portal, whatever we want to call it, is a point of advertisement for Thompson's. And so I don't think it should be dark all the time just because it gets dark outside. That business is really important to this community, and it's probably one of the biggest sales tax contributor that this community has. And I think, within reason, we need to make sure it's successful as possible.
Commissioners, if I may, just to point out, one of the proposed conditions that staff has, condition number 3 on page 10 of your report, states that the lighting of the portal structure should be controlled via photocell and timer to restrict illumination from dusk to the end of normal business hours. Okay. So the idea being that the timing of it would correlate. If their closure time is 10 o'clock, it would turn off at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, not just photo, but timer, yes. Any other comments, questions? Michael?
If it was to be determined to be a sign, what kind of square footage do they already have? Do they have leeway in there? They're pulling the Toyota and the Thompsons off the frontage now and moving on to this portal. Are those relatively the same size as existing now, not counting this entry structure?
No, in short, if the entirety of the portal was counted as sign area, that would significantly increase their square footage of sign area. I'm looking back at the staff report from December of last year. The total sign area of the wall signs is approximately 115 square feet, where a maximum of 200 square feet is permitted. Let's see here. The monument sign consists of approximately 75 square feet. Therefore, the total sign area is approximately 190 square feet, where 200 square feet is permissible maximum when you count the monument sign and all the wall signs. So if the entire portal was counted as sign area, it would definitely put them well over that 200 square foot limit.
Satisfactory? Okay. Anybody prepared to make a motion or further comment? Just want to further.
Okay. So, passing by this location as I do twice a day, and have done so for the past 20 years, the monument sign out front seems to track with my understanding of what a sign is. The portal feels more to me like an architectural element on which there's a sign that says Toyota and the logo. So my sense, and at this early stage in my career as a planning commissioner, that's kind of my impression, is that the out front there's a time and temperature thing, and it says Thompson's Toyota, and that's a sign. This is a change to the front elevation in order to make it more consistent with other Toyota dealerships, and upon that change depends Thompson's future allocations of inventory to sell and charge sales tax upon. With regard to the illumination of what I'm going to call the portal architectural element, is I interpret these numbers, these foot candle numbers, kind of the way I interpret signal strength numbers in my day job. And I think set against the amount of foot candles striking the pavement of the sales area out front versus this is a very minor contributor to the overall site lighting. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's kind of lost in the noise floor of the pole lighting. So I'm not especially concerned about its contribution to an overall increase in lighting. And we've been told that it's less lighting than we currently have with the wall-mounted fixtures. So those are my impressions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Someone prepared to make a motion, perhaps?
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion. You'll all have to bear with my ignorance and relative newcomer to this process, but my motion in summary is that that we approve the request of Thompson's Toyota to proceed with the architectural design as presented in this report. I'm certainly happy to entertain friendly amendments regarding dimmability or other ameliorating measures, although I will again go on record as saying I don't believe it's going to be a concern if the numbers here can be believed, and I think they can.
I'll go ahead and second the motion for sake of
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, normally, I know this is your first time, and you did good.
Is that right?
But
I was going to offer an amendment to
okay,
help.
normally we, enter the staff report as part of the record and say we agree to the conditions and whatnot, but I think that's part of the motion in this case, so.
Well, I'll offer the amendment to Commissioner Lowry. Hopefully he'll find it a friendly amendment that we recommend that we conduct the public hearing. We enter the staff report into the public record and accept the findings, Roman numeral 3 on page 8, Roman numeral 3, A through G, incorporate the staff as part of the public record, and then condition 4, adopt the conditions of approval contained in attachment 1. That'd be my amendment.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, we have
Trying to redeem
a
myself.
motion and a second. Are there any other comments, or should we call for the vote? I guess we'll call for the vote.
Member Lowry.
Aye.
Member Friend.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Russell.
Aye.
Member Drobish.
Aye.
Thank you. And my comments about that being a really important business in this city, I meant that, I wish we had a couple other car dealerships in our city. Yes. Okay. I'm not sure our chairman is still in attendance. I think he had a commitment, or since the meeting is pretty much over, I guess I'll continue as chairman and
I think he may have left for the evening.
yes,
Okay.
he said that he probably
Okay.
would, and so. Item 8, matters from staff and commissioners. Staff, do you have any items for us?
Staff has 2 items. I'll go first, Mike. We were alerted just this week of a kind of a community celebration of the opening of the playground equipment on Duffy Park. I believe I forwarded that information to you. this is kind of an outreach to the public. It's this Saturday, Duffy Park, which is, what are the two streets there? It's Clay and Arizona, I believe, are the two streets, and Pleasant are the three streets there. It starts at 10 a.m., goes to 1 p.m. Again, and this is a celebration which we sponsored by the Kiwanis, who helped put that equipment out there in the park. Mike, do you have an offer?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. The other item that we have is just
If I'm just a quick
please.
question on that. I recall from the email, Andrew, that there was something about unofficial, and then there was a barbecue function. And my question is there a ceremonial? Is there a time for a specific ceremonial, like a ribbon cutting, for lack of a better term, or is it just kind of we're all gathering and then they're going to fire up the barbecue?
I can't answer that. What you have is what I have.
Okay.
Perhaps we can clarify that for you, and
For me, that would be helpful. So
Okay.
if I could break away from my activities on Saturday, if there was a ceremonial component, certainly would like to show up for that. But so if you could maybe get a little bit more specific detail, appreciate that. Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, the other announcement is that on April 22nd, we will be holding a workshop with the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that will be from 6 to 8 o'clock here in this room. 6 o'clock, yeah, to 8 o'clock. And that is the focus of that will be on the the Economic Development Advisory Committee's current efforts to develop an economic development strategy for the city. Basically, it's a follow-up to a check-in that we had with the City Council a few weeks back on the progress that the EDAC has been making in terms of their vision statement, mission statement, and goals and objectives. And at this point, they've developed six key goals and objectives that would drive the economic development strategy moving forward. Before getting into the next phase of developing strategies to implement those objectives, the council had a strong desire to get together with the EDAC and the Planning Commission, have a workshop discussion of the goals and objectives that have been developed to date. Staff will do a brief overview of what's been developed to date, and you'll certainly get reports well in advance that outline that work and engage in some discussion about it. And I think it'll be a good discussion, and you'll get a sense of what the EDAC has been doing and have an opportunity to weigh in on the development of those goals. So if you have any questions, by all means.
Yeah, will this be like a neighborhood chat with a public participation component, or is this?
There certainly will be a public comment component to it. I think the council's desire was that it be really more of a workshop format between the three bodies to have, and certainly the public welcome invited, but I think primarily a discussion amongst those three bodies to say, hey, are we all kind of going in the right direction with this?
Who's going to be the moderator to keep it on track?
The mayor.
I believe the mayor would probably be taking on that responsibility. Yeah.
But thanks for volunteering nonetheless.
I have two comments, I guess, or questions or whatever. First, I'll thank Commissioner Drobish for bringing that material in about the windows and things. I would ask that it's a little late to go through something like that, 10 minutes before the meeting, and if anybody that has information that they want to share, I think should be encouraged to do that. But it'd be nice if it could have gone out with the agenda so we'd have a chance to digest it, And the second, it's a question for you, Mike. In the past, this is, prior to your coming on board with the city, staff reports generally included a staff recommendation. We approve of the project, we approve of approval or denial or whatever, and you seem to not do that. Is that by choice or?
Well, in the In the staff report format, we have changed the format somewhat,
Okay,
so it
maybe
may
I
be just
missed
be.
it because it's in a different place.
Yeah, I think it's probably a function of our
Okay.
trying to have consistent formatting throughout, and we call it summary recommendation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that front part.
I was late, but I did read it.
You got
Yes,
that
we
far.
refer to it as
got
a
that
summary recommendation. That's right. And then
Okay.
typically in the conclusion, we'll try to, if it's a very lengthy report, we'll try to integrate a conclusion component too.
Yeah.
And the shorter ones, sometimes it's not necessary because it's such a short report.
I personally think that's important to us because you guys are the pros, the professionals, and I respect your opinions. And if you have one, I'd like to know what it is, and
Absolutely.
not just a little, a wishy-washy one, but if you really feel strongly about something, whether it shouldn't be approved or whatever, I think we need that.
Absolutely, I agree.
Thank you.
In regards to the previous item about materials and such, I've been putting together information to hopefully help people when they come into the department and they're thinking, oh, but my siding is just falling off the building. Where do I start? And there's all kinds of tips and products and places to start. And so hopefully it'll help out. And I would like to put together a workshop to go over the Secretary of Interior's guidelines because we've just adopted them in whole. And maybe or maybe not, they're perfect as written for Placerville.
Mr. Chairman, I'll yield to the commission for the.
Andrew, I think this is a great time and place for me to kind of conclude our discussion regarding ex parte communications. I'm not convinced that. Well, I'm happy to jump into the deep end with the City Council. If we have an overall ex parte communications policy that applies really to all boards and commissions in the city, I think that's a really healthy thing. Meantime, what I'm going to do for myself and only for myself is that when I find myself at Centro Coffee House or Zia's or one of those places where I get point blanked, I'm going to bring out the old iPhone and say, we're now having an ex parte communication. Please speak clearly and distinctly into the microphone.
If I can comment on that, I think you might have that conversation be very short if that were the case, and perhaps that's the intent. Yeah. In many other jurisdictions, one in which I previously was employed in, one of the suggestions by our county council at that time was that when someone approaches you for an item that you know or you expect it to be on the agenda, that you just politely say, I believe this item's coming before us and I really can't comment on the issue. And that should be, succinct enough. So I offer that as if that situation were to arise.
Question with regards to the April 16th, 6 p.m. meeting. What do we have coming up agenda item-wise? Okay.
It doesn't appear that the 16th we have things ripe for your review. I can tell you that on the first meeting in May, it is quite likely that we will have a couple of items, one of which some of you, members Russell and Friend, would know something about, which is the Airport Land Use Commission and the city's requirement to implement that plan so that it is consistent with our general plan. Staff is working on that implementation and hope to have that for public review well in advance of that meeting so that they can evaluate and comment if needed. That item is highly likely to be that first meeting in May. The second item is an item we expect to receive an application submitted. Well, we expected one last week and the week before and perhaps the week before that. But it is a project that involves an existing site on Cedar Ravine, and it's a change of use. The site is located in the historic district. There are no exterior changes to the building. It is strictly a change in use, and by site plan review code, that must come back before you for your review. And just as an aside, that if it is submitted soon, we can get it on the next Historical Advisory Committee agenda, as well as meet the first meeting in May. Mike, do you have any other?
No, I would just offer that I think with the workshop on the 22nd, that we'd kind of suggest that be taking the place of the meeting you'd otherwise have scheduled the 16th, and then
Okay,
we'll
so
have that first meeting
more
in
of
May.
that
and-
needs to be canceled.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
With that, if that's it, we'll adjourn to the, at least
Motion to
the-
adjourn.
The meeting, is that necessary?
I think so. I think it's
Really?
required. I think
Okay.
a motion to adjourn is required.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. We'll adjourn to at least the meeting of April 22nd, and then on to the first meeting in May for our regular meeting.